Thank you for staying with Daybreak. We're just getting into the second hour in that discussion. Like we mentioned earlier on, the question we're asking you this morning is, should artists be prosecuted for going against common decency? You can tweet at Trevor Mbija, Twahiga Mwaura, Zinzi K, at Willis Raburu as well. All of us, hashtag Daybreak. We'll make sure we read some of your views during this broadcast. You can also call in 0719-777-777 anytime. We can have this discussion with you as well. Should artists be prosecuted for going against common decency? We have artists in the building as well.
You can tweet them as well, and I'm sure they'll be giving us their Twitter handles. But let me introduce them from their right, which is my left. We have Daisy Olo, in charge of PR and Communications Feeder. Welcome to the program.
Having me.
Juliani, a.k.a. Julius Owino. Musician and
founder and director.
Okay, I'm very for the other one.
With a professional light.
Karibu sana. Maureen Kunga, member of the Lani Advocate of the High Court. Welcome.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
And last but not least, Maji, a.k.a.
Julius Owino.
MD Get Radio, welcome to the program as well.
Thank you.
Good. This is what your papers look like this morning. We'll start with so the front page of the Nation, front page of the Standard pretty much have a related story. Dam scandal could sink 4 ministers. Sink, that's a wordplay there. Investigations, the chickens could come home to roost for cabinet secretaries suspected of aiding graft in the awarding of tenders for construction of dams and buying of fertilizer. Police sources have confided, and page 4 of the Daily Nation will give you more details about that story. But basically, another scandal, if you're looking for a summary of that. Front page of the Standard, same thing. How broke Italian firm got projects worth 91 billion Kenya shillings. And you can see pictures of some of those dams there. And allegedly, CMC-D Ravenna has been declared bankrupt at home in Italy and kicked out of multi-billion shilling water projects in Nepal. And yet, in Kenya, despite a 4 billion Kenya shilling advance payment, no work has stopped.
Scandals and scandals and more scandals.
I think for the last 1 year, these are the sort of headlines we've been looking at.
Exactly.
My question to my guests, and I want to first understand from each of you, when you look at all these revelations, and some would ask, first of all, how do media houses get all these stories without, us knowing sort of all the investigations that happen? Is someone leaking all this information to the press? But secondly, do you believe the government is serious on the war against corruption? Giuliani, you're really looking at me, so let me start. I'm sure you've been following everything that's been happening. Do you feel the government is serious on the war against corruption?
No,
do you think
corruption is the 42nd tribe in Kenya. It's like a thing now, so we just accept it. Hata tuko na budget line ya corruption.
So
hakuna kitu hapa. It's a way of life for us, and there is nothing we're going to do about it. Because right now, the reason why maybe we msali leak your information is because they alinyimwa kati yake. It's not because they really care about the issue as such.
So their argument is that there are some people who've been prosecuted. Like yesterday we saw the Moses Lenol Kulal, the governor for Samburu, being taken to EACC. You don't think that's a step in the right direction?
Jana uliona hiyo mrembo hii kesi ya nini ya mada hii ya anaitwa Kiru sijui nani.
Mary Wamboi.
Si uliona huyu jamaa kwa koti. Ukaona mpaka yeye akitoa machozi, si ndio? But huyu muone huyu anapelekwa EACC kama viti na cushion poa, unaona. So this is a matter history ni PR, and there's nothing going to happen.
Okay, we'll come back to you to press you a bit further. That Maureen, what's your take?
It does, to some extent I do agree. It does seem like a PR issue. We've reached a point where, and you mentioned it as well, and I don't know whether like everybody caught that when you said that for the past year, 2 years, it's been the same thing. It's basically same script, different cast. If it's not a dam, it's maize. If it's not maize, it's a building. If it's not a building, it's like, that's why I'm sort of agreeing. It's like another tribe. It's like part of our culture now, and that's so unfortunate that then people get so disillusioned about the fact that like it just seems like nothing is going to ever change. We should hope that like, okay, granted, all right, EACC, okay, there's like, you can count on one hand the number of things that you've seen like genuinely going on, right, versus the number of scandals, which I mean every day for 2-3 years you're looking at the same thing on the paper,
The argument has always been there has to be due process. You are an advocate of the High Court. In fact, some people say the judiciary is part of the failing system.
Right.
Yeah, but the judiciary also backpasses that and says that you don't give us concrete evidence. So what do we do?
Fair enough. But then also you see at some point, when it gets to a point where there's so much going on, there's a difference between due process and just process stopping. process, because that's what happens.
So
that's what happens. It disappears. It disappears from the paper. It disappears from the news, and all of a sudden there's something else, and there's always a distraction. In fact, recently there was something going on Twitter, and it was a hashtag. I wish I could remember exactly what it was, but it was just memes going around about how when this thing happens, this is the exciting story that's brought up to like just hide the fact that this, to counter. And there's always something that happens. It happened in the States. It has been happening across the world, and it happens here.
I think I'll be a bit positive. I'll be a bit positive. The consistency, if we are calling it PR, is good. At least it's sending a message.
Yeah.
So one thing it will help, it will deter. They'll either get smarter or fear attempting to be as corrupt as it was. I think before that it was too easy. It was now becoming a way of life, like he's saying, from the top, and it was affecting the youth in that the youth could have started assuming that what matters is how much your success is, how much you have. And you can see corruption has brought a situation where socially you see there's no more role models. The role model is a person who can buy a good car, can get money and get away with anything, including corruption, including murder. It has been that. So you see the PR is working on the lower side. It's working on at least something is happening. So the PR should be consistent, but I'm waiting for a day one will be nailed and we say it has happened.
By nailed, you mean jailed?
Yeah, due process has been followed.
Okay.
And we've seen hard evidence on it, and it has been followed. And I like when the president is talking tough about it. Raila, other leaders. That's where it starts. The Kisii one was good. Carry your own cross. And the chief minister is there, and he says all ministers carry your own cross. And at that particular time you see Balala in court, you see the Samburu governor.
EACC rather.
Yeah, you see at least you can see something happening. So we're waiting for the last, at least one person. In fact, the headline should read, "Dam scandal should sink for ministers."
Should sink for
ministers.
That's how you do right.
Something has happened. You see the company is bankrupt in Italy, for example, but it gets tenders from this side. How? And then also, this one also brings another gap that we are not talking about. When you do projects for the people, where was public participation? Who decided we needed dams there? Did the public get involved? Because you see, one reason why they're halting, one is corruption. The other one, the locals have not been
compensated,
and they don't even know how it's coming about. Who told you we wanted to sell our land for a dam? You see? So there's another aspect that is coming up. The lack or inefficiency in public participation. Are people deciding for us? Because I think when you talk to people and find out what they want, you'll get things right. They'll even give up their land. I've seen that work elsewhere, even for private businessmen. They give up land for development purposes. So that is also bringing an issue of public participation in governance. And government should not carry out any project on behalf of the people without the people. So the first corruption starts not only from the financial end, but from the concept of the project.
Okay. I'll come back to you because I'm curious to get your thoughts then on the Huduma number, which a lot of people are saying has not gotten
no public participation.
Daisy, the word PR has really been floated around here. That's something that you're in charge of at FIDA. So I want to get your thoughts on whether this is PR or real
something actually happening.
Yes.
You know, guys, I wish this was breaking news. I wish corruption was breaking news. It's been with us for so many years. We've become desensitized to it, and that's the truth. That's the honest truth. When you talk to young people out here, what they say is, it's been passed on from one generation to another. Civil society is rotting with corruption. There's something that needs to be done about it, but what are we saying needs to be done about it? There are clear policies. Fine, we'll say there are policies here and there that deal with corruption, but to be honest, when you walk into a government office, it starts from the very low position. They want you to do something for them in order for you to get your services. Some people argue that it is not corruption, neither is it bribing, but you're basically employing government workers to do the work they need to do for you. So at the end of the day, you only get a service when you propagate a brand, right? So I wish this was breaking news. Unfortunately, it's being passed on. It's sort of becoming our culture, like Juliani said. It's becoming ingrained in us. People are not moved by it anymore. And unless we see strong results coming from prosecution, strong results coming from declarations from above, we'll just continue with what it is. So this may be a PR stunt that will continue for days to come if nothing is done about it now.
All right, we're just winding up the newspaper review in just a bit, but the question we're asking you this morning, and it's coming up on your screen, is should artists be prosecuted for going against common decency? That is the main discussion coming up in the next hour as we wind up the newspaper review. You can tweet us at Trevor Media.
You can call in as well.
You can call in as well, 0719 777. But before that happens, Majimaji, you mentioned something interesting there. There seems to be a bit of a disconnect between the public needs and what the government is doing.
Yes.
But at the same time, you also said at this point it's more about what you have. How much of that is to blame on the public themselves? Because we've seen people glorify the same guys who've been taken to EACC. We've actually seen supporters show up to show their support in person, and they don't stand with that person who's been taken to court or something like that. But when the EACC comes in to take action, it's always our guy, our person is being targeted, our cult, our tribe is being targeted. So how much of that is to blame on the youth as well? Or are they just doing this to make money? Because there's also the argument that they're just being paid to protest.
I will not blame the youth. There's another aspect that misses: information. And information is power. Where does the government give out information about what they want? Like if you want to know about public participation, utaikemba kwa gazeti. Imekuwa hapo kama ni Nairobi County, kutakuwa na participation hapo kadogo hivyo. How many youth visit sub-county offices to find their posters? So it has to come back to involve people. The first power you need to give is information. Like if I'm to come here and I want people to see and hear, I must get the information, pass it down. So that needs to happen from the government. When they decide they want to do something, they must give information, ask, get consent from the people, then the people can correct it, shape it up, and then policy is shaped, then implemented after. So then in this case, I won't blame the youth, I won't blame the entire Kenyan community, I'll blame the lapse in the He'll be having so many people to prosecute.
So Maureen, where are we basing this on? Are we basing this on our culture, or is there something called common decency?
That's the question. When the law is created, because he says, he speaks about contravening an act, right? The law is created in a very objective, black and white way. There's right and there's wrong. When we start bringing opinion and subjectivity into it, where is the line? Where do we draw the line? Whose culture is it? What if where I come from, that's fine? And where I come, and I can prove that where I come from, this is exactly what happens culturally, right? Or and the second thing that I had really thought about is, I mean, how is this going to be executed? How is it possible that you're going to? And I was actually at a stakeholders meeting early last year with the Kenya Film Board, and they were talking about how they wanted to, how they would implement this, in that how they would figure out that stage plays, movies, etc. are okay for people to watch, and how they'd rate them with the age ratings that they put up, the age restrictions that they put up. And the idea was that before every performance, and this was actually floated, before every performance, meaning before Elani performs, before Juliani performs, we would have to go into the Kenya Film Board offices, perform for them to watch it, and then go back. First of all, how is that even feasible? No, even leave alone the obvious insults. Leave alone the obvious insults that brings about. How am I supposed to carry out my business if every time I have a gig, I need to call Ezekiel Mutua, go into the office, sing for an hour and a half, and then say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. You know, it's impossible to implement. You can't say that you're going to ban this. Unfortunately, many of these things are going to be hindsight issues where someone has created a storm and furor, and everybody now needs to, you know, look at this artist, or look at this playwright, or look at this, you know. But the problem is, one, I think that this is an impossible thing to do. Maybe there's something that I can't see.
But also the other thing is, Ezekiel Mutua, the one you're talking about, says we are deeply concerned about a false belief that only sexualized content appeals to the audiences. I've seen your videos as well, Elani, and yourself as in the video as well. You don't show that much flesh.
Yeah, I like to think I'm not overly sexualized yet somehow.
How did you decide? How did you decide and say that I'm going to stick to this line, and that's how my performance will be?
In fact, let me add to that. To understand where we are as a nation, has anyone ever come up to you as a group and said, if you want to sell more,
show a bit of skin,
do this or do that? Has that ever been a conversation?
No, I feel like there's been like conversations on Twitter, nothing like, nobody coming to give like legitimate advice, saying like, you know what, I believe that for your brand, you need to like,
but is it something you've seen?
But of course there's something like someone on Twitter goes, hey, you guys don't know like sex sells. I'm like, first of all, no, it doesn't. Secondly, an artist is allowed to portray themselves in the manner that they see fit. Unless that manner and the way that they're portraying themselves infringes on someone else's rights, you can't stop me from doing exactly what I want to do. So in this case, I mean, he says, and I know him well, and I'm sorry to disagree so strongly with him on television, but you're saying that he wants to change the narrative that only sexualized content appeals to people. Under what circumstance is it that that's his job to change the narrative of what people believe that entertainment is? Isn't the purpose of the Kenya Film Board to make sure that content that should not be seen is not seen? Full stop. Right? And to make sure that if it's restricted to 18, restrict it to 18. I mean, also let's stick to our job descriptions. And then therefore, I mean, yeah, let's not overreach.
Juliani has just been holding himself.
No, I think nilikunywa za chai leo. So I'm super hyper, even for my own good. Like I feel super hyped. Yeah, and so your chai liko na sukari mob. Anyway, so for me, I think bring up your conversation values for us as a country. And in a byproduct of corruption is a byproduct of everything else. But Ezekiel kwangu ni reactive.
Reactive.
Ni reactive too. So kama kunanga kakitu imehappen na ezangi ongea. Akujangi na way of course ni sibo atujuani sana but tumepiga picha unaona, but I'll tell him straight up like when Ezekiel when reactive, like if nothing happened, and I know specifically they are referring to nani Akode. So if Akode never did that, angeongea sindio.
You're talking about her dance.
Yeah, that's what the conversation is
from Malindi this past weekend.
Yeah, that's where the conversation is streaming from. It's not because at a country we need to go forward. No, but yes, we need to have a discussion about our values as a country, because from corruption to hizi vitu zote tunaongea kuhusu sahi, to our children, my videos zinaonekana our children drinking kwa buses, to social media, what trends more. We need to have a conversation about values as a country. If we have that kind of conversation, if we are going to start having that conversation, maybe ndoko like, hey, otherwise mimi naona tu magazeti lazima ziuzwe na ma trends lazima zicreatiwe.
When the word values comes to mind for you, values and Kenya, do any values come to mind that you think are Kenyan?
Corruption.
Okay, hang on. I want to bring in Daisy. Unless you you have no artistic background in that sense like these others.
Well, do you consider journalism?
Oh, okay, good. Because I think you can bring in a different perspective. Just walk us through what you think about this particular topic.
In my former life, I was a journalist. In fact, it's really good to be on this side of a teleprompter. It's been a while. I once was told explicitly, Daisy, is how you need to jazz it up a little bit. And that's one of the things that made me, that's one of the things that actually made me leave media, because I felt it was not going to resonate with who I am as a person, and so I decided perhaps another line would work for me. But Maureen said something that maybe I'd like to comment on. When you say sex sells, there is a producer and there's a consumer who is consuming that which is being produced. And when we say that that is what is selling, then we are saying that as a society, that is what is appealing to people. And that's what Mutua is seeming to say. Although the board supports creativity, we are deeply concerned about a false belief that only sexualized content appeals to audiences. Unfortunately, that is what is appealing to audiences, sexualized content. We need to have that conversation.
I really disagree with that.
We need to have that conversation. But what I think I appreciate about Mutua is that you need to understand he's coming from a place where 80% of this country is Christian, 10% is Muslim, and therefore theoretically, should I say? Theoretically? Okay. So at 80% Christian and 10% Muslim, there are values within that context that ideally regulate what we think, what we say, and how we go about business. So when he says common decency is being violated, could he be talking from that perspective?
I wanted to point out
the answers here, and just just let our viewers know that you can weigh in on this conversation. Should artists be prosecuted for going against common decency? Talk to us. 22422 is our SMS line. Use the hashtag Daybreak, and of course you can call in. The numbers continuously being scrolled on the screen. Maji, come in.
Yeah, just to back up what she's saying, I wanted to tell Ezekiel that I believe morality cannot be fixed by the law. Morality cannot be fixed.
You can't regulate.
You can't fix morality by the law. But there are bodies such as the parents, the elders. There is the cultural background. Then there's the church or religion that can fix morality. It's how you're brought up, it's how you're wired. So we cannot, I don't think we can fix morality by any law.
Yeah.
And because according to me, law should be creative. Law should capture a way of life and ensure human rights are enshrined. The law must not be stagnant. That's why we have MPs to legislate and look at bills so that it keeps changing, and the law needs to capture what's happening now. So morality, if the law was to capture what's happening now, he's too late for it.
Okay.
Yeah, the millennials are way 100 years away from it. So we can only fix morality by those parents, cultures, elders, back to that system, the church, the world. I wish we stuck to the African theme. Would not be talking about
Is that really true? Because there's an argument that the young people and the millennials now look up to people like Juliani and again the Ilanis and the Maureen. And Maureen was saying that sexual content doesn't sell according to her. But Elijah here, Okemwa, says artists are members of the society. If they go beyond the moral line, artistic prowess is not an insulation against moral fabric.
Exactly.
It's that moral fabric that we're trying to find. And
He's actually said 3 more words that you're not reading.
Yeah, but I'll leave that out because it's
No, but the fact is we can't say that sex sells as this huge. There are tens of millions of fans and people in this country. If we were to say point blank, sex sells and that's the only thing that you need to do to become a successful artist, then what happens to the tens and hundreds actually of gospel artists who are doing very, very well in this country? Why is Juliani doing so well? His content is not overly sexualized. Why did Elani do so well? Why is Masi Masika, Joyce Omondi, size 8 now that she shifted to the gospel side? The fact is there's very good, wholesome content coming out that's doing very well. So we can't just put a stamp on it and say, you know what, the audience wants too much over-sexualized content, and so we have to make sure that we like shut this down. That's not necessarily true. Also, art is an issue of taste. So we can't put these 40-something million people in one box and say everybody wants this thing, because that's not true.
What about the role model part, whereby parents say we are trying to teach our children the right thing, but they see what you people do on TV and they want to do exactly what you do?
I do great things on TV.
No, parents can tell us nothing about morality and role model, because parents are the ones messing up the whole thing.
Why is that?
Parents are messing up the whole thing. They are the ones being corrupt. They are the ones having all this relationship outside marriage. They are the ones breaking that institution of family. They are the ones doing all these things. So a parent can never even, they are the ones in the church. They are the ones wanapiganga makofi politician akingia kwa church. Mpaka wanamwimbia. So we can't.
So do you think the
parents
actually cannot even say anything about this, because they're the ones actually messing up the whole thing.
The parents and the church.
Hey, if they were specifically,
and the church.
So you think the clergy is also failing?
If they were specifically, if they were that standard for us, our parents are our standard. My parents decided, shaped who I am right now. My parents were deliberate about they brought me up, not kunitupa kwa school and then wanalipa violin classes, ballet classes. Jama mtaani hata hajui ballet, analazimishwa kwa ballet, so that horse riding, so that akuwe na walimu kwa zaidi ya kiwa stories, because they are searching
hustling.
They're hustling.
You look like you really wanted to respond to.
You know, Juliani says something here that has struck me well. Deliberate parenting is perhaps something that we need to look at. It's true what you say. Many people, I remember in my generation, sort of many of my friends' parents left to go and study abroad, or left to go and just, you know, be actively involved in school, and left the parenting job seemingly to the help. Right? And so what that does, it separates your values as a parent from that of your child. So there's no opportunity for you to transfer your value system, your ideals to your children, because you don't have time for them. They're in school, they're learning whatever it is they're learning. They are wherever they are, you know, absorbing all the value system that society will impact on them. And therefore, Juliani, I'm afraid to say this, but I think you're right. Parents need to parents need to be deliberate about how they parent their children, how they transfer their values down to their people, to their children. And then also we begin that conversation about, have we lost it as a people in terms of transferring our culture down to our generations? From where I come from, I'm not very sure I understand the customary laws around marriage. Not because I don't attend weddings, but simply because I don't think I've been in a situation where it's explicitly shown to me, it's explicitly passed on to me, but that's a conversation for another day. But I think we need to be deliberate about passing on our cultural values down from the top, or rather the generation that is slowly fading away, onto us, so that we can also in turn pass them on. And then we won't have these issues about what do we consider as values as a nation, what do we consider as culture as a people, because we already know it, it's ingrained in us, and it's not corruption, I hope. And, you know, we'll move on and be a better people.
It's interesting what Daisy is saying, because Codine Fred seems to agree. He says the issue of morality is deep-rooted into the society. It's not just a conversation about the artist alone. Seems we've forgotten that we are as Africans and want to use the likes of Cardi B and Beyonce to justify our actions. Let's be Africans. And that's the one thing I want Maureen to delve into, because how then do we stick to our cultural lines, and yet most artists are trying to compete globally?
I mean, competing.
What is the global trends in our African setup? How does that work?
But
you have the experience of that.
I feel like we'd be better suited to compete globally if we were to perfect the art within what we have. What I mean by that is, the way to compete with the West is not by becoming the West. The way to compete with American musicians is not to become an American musician. It's to become the best possible version of a Kenyan musician there is, so that when you go into that market, it's something completely new. And that's what some artists are really trying to do. Of course, there'll be, every once in a while, and in every society you see that, somebody who's trying to like conform to something that they've seen on television, and people do that all over the world, where you see artists trying to mimic. We call it mimicking because that's exactly what it looks like. Mimic artists from
what others are doing.
Exactly, from, you know, over the ocean. But the fact of the matter remains that if you were to remain true to yourself and do the best possible job that you can do, work together and build a culture together, where Elani and Juliani and Maji, are you coming back to music? You're very come back. And Maji were to come together, pull resources together, and figure out how to make, like, how do we do world-class quality production and content, but showcasing what we have to offer. That's what I think, like, that's the counter to possibly looking like we are trying to be Beyonce and trying to be Cardi B, because that's the easiest way to do it. Unfortunately, we're in a situation where we don't necessarily have the structure and the financing that the West tends to have for things like this, which is another reason why I think we should just pull together. I mean, you know, if you have a 50K here and a 50K here and a 50K there, you make a much better video together than you would by yourself.
Why don't you work together? Hang on there. Let's take a look at some feedback there. We have some SMSs or tweets, I believe. Should be coming up on the screen just. And of course, 22422 is our SMS line, and talk to us on social media. Use the hashtag Daybreak as well, and we'll read that. Trevor.
Jane Omwenga, they shouldn't. Every media content has an audience. If you see something that you don't like, it's probably not meant for you.
Okay. Stick to your lane, I guess. There's another way of phrasing that. Elvis Nyaruri, if you only gave art a chance, then role models would exist. As artists, we're living in times where you only need to trend for you to get a platform. Nobody cares about your content nor your talent. If I strip naked in town today, I am the headliner. Every media platform wants me. Hashtag Daybreak. Okay.
All right. And we have another one. Omar says, I agree with Ezekiel with 200%. If you get to Instagram, you will know how these musicians influence us. Look at the dress code of our youth. But I foresee a situation in future in which the nation will need to be rehabilitated. So
okay. I want us to just get into something briefly, right? So the word values has come up quite a bit, and each of you, some of you have said that values is relative depending on where you are at a particular time, etc. But I'd be curious to hear from you. When I say the word values, and I asked Juliani this, and he said corruption, what word comes to mind for each of you that describes Kenya, to help us begin to shape what, if there are common values among this age group, what would they look like? And Maji, I could start with you. One word. Think about values.
Value for Kenya. I think, I can't even get a word. We are all over. Yeah. We are all over.
Okay.
We are just all over. I think there's so much that has been eroded. But I think because the way she said Christianity takes 80%, I think we are a religious nation.
So religion is one of our...
So it's easy. That's why I would blame that other side, because they never take position. They never take a stand on anything.
Yeah.
They follow after a stand has been taken by someone who's not religious. Then they follow. So if the church can get back to where they were, And I've given you an example why values are good. Because if I shot a video, for example, and I innocently put an African woman fetching firewood, dressed in our Maasai woman, the way they dress, innocently put it won't look bad. You see, so we can still get that African gold we have. We can still not put on a lot of clothes on TV, and we will still look good, as long as we maintain our values. You get my point? So I think the church has a lot to play. Religion has a lot to play, and also our culture has a lot to play. We pass it on. If these young people could go back to their homes and just stress where they're from, you'll realize. I did it last year and the other year, and you get to know a lot more about you than what you know. Yeah. You even get to understand who you are, who you're named after, what he used to do or what she used to do. Then it quickly ignites something in you, and you start acting differently. Yeah. If people can trace back, it's kwetu mtaani unasema kwenu ni wapi? Asi ocha kwetu ni Ziwa, ocha kwetu ni Jeri, ocha kwetu ni Nyayo Estate. Yuko ndo ocha. So parents have a lot to do. Wacha hawa watu wajitrace. It will ignite a lot in you. It is not crazy Obama took the journey all the way. There is something in tracing, knowing who you are. So the African, the cultural thing she's saying, the religious thing she's saying will do a lot. I'll tell him again, morality will never be governed by law. Yeah. On the light, they'll hide. When it's dark, they'll do anything they want.
And that brings up the story that one of our viewers was talking about, freedom of choice. If you see something you don't like, it's probably not meant for you. Right. But how far does that go into eroding the moral fabric? Because I might decide to just put on anything I want to put on TV and decide that if you don't like it, go sleep or something like that.
I've seen products that have worked like that. They are not on TV, but they're big. There are videos coming up, if you check out the views, and they are not even 750,000 watt video. They're like 5K videos, and they have more hits than a million budget video. I've seen them, you know them. Go out there, you see me. So that's to back up what they are saying. Even if you don't show it on TV, they'll access it. They have a lot of up to 1 million views, and they've never been on any TV.
Any word that comes to mind when you think about values in this country?
I think culture and roots, and that's more where we should be heading rather than where we are.
Culture and roots.
Yeah, I think that's what comes to mind. I agree very much with what he just said, which is where when you have conversations with the people who came before you, or the group of people who unfortunately, like Daisy has just said, are slowly fading away. The things that you can learn when you just sit down and have like a conversation with a grandparent, if you are lucky enough that they are still alive, or anybody who is just of that generation. You learn so much and understand so much more about yourself and where you've come from, and it really changes, or at least for me, it really changes how you think and how you carry yourself, and you know, when you understand really where you're from. So I think I'd agree with Maji with regard to culture, and just add roots there.
Okay, you said corruption. You changed your stance.
Corruption is a byproduct of something. So for me, I think it's identity. So Kwangu identity, and I told this story before, like. So Maji knew me I knew them, from Kitambo when I was a young boy, when I was just in high school. So what used to happen is that in Dandora, when I grew up, the role models and the people we used to hang out with were thugs. And they are the ones who had the beautiful ladies, they're the ones who had new shoes. And you wanted to be like them. And so when these guys come, Keishaka, Mau Mau, and Maji came, we got an alternative way of looking at life. We could be on news and the newspapers by being good musicians and not by being thugs. Because ukiwa thug, ukiwa kwa gazeti, either uko wanted ama muuliwa. Unaona? But with these guys, we'll get an alternative of our identity. So I think in our society right now, when you talk about values, it's an issue of sisi tunatry kudelegate, tunatry kuacha responsibility yetu ya kuinstill hizi values kwa watu wale wana look up to us, and we delegate it to our politicians and our churches and whatever. We don't want to take responsibility for everything and where we are right now. So as a country, we are only 50 years old. Sindio?
50 something, yes.
Ni 50 based on how you look at it, Sindio? But if you think about it, even our first political party, KANU or KADU or whatever, was a mixture of just people coming together to fight Mbeberu. It wasn't shared values. It was just, opportunity may come. Come. No, we sit in a meza and say, utakuwa president, utakuwa nini. We didn't come based on any. I think we share this value and nini. So 50 years later, that's why tribalism is still an issue. because we came on the table just to share a pot of...
so we are glued by common interest and not value.
Exactly.
We have to take a caller here, but I'll come to you, Juliani, in just a bit. Sylvans from Kisii. Good morning, Sylvans. What's your comment or question?
This is Iverian.
Yes, go ahead with the comment or question.
Yeah, I'm saying in as much as the artists would want to be creative,
Yes.
yeah, they also need to maybe care about the children that are around.
Okay.
Yeah, I was once an artist. I used to perform in drama.
Mm.
And we really didn't used to care about our clothing. But then when I came to realize some of the clothes that maybe not that much to expose, yeah, I definitely dropped out of them. And then I think, as much as we would want them to maybe capture our minds and maybe like their music and whatsoever, yeah, they also need to maybe mind what they talk about their dressing, because when you say legs are there to be opened, you know, that is something very unique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think creativity also needs to have some more.
They should be sensitive to these children as well. Thanks, Sylvans. That's Sylvans from Kisii calling in. And before you go to Daisy, I wanted to ask Juliani something. You're the one who talked about abdicating our roles in one way or another and failing to take responsibility. When do umesema kina majimaji? Abdicating ni kama kulenga, kuachana na roles zetu. When do umesema kina majimaji walikuja? Wakapata ulikuwa involved in serious things, but they gave you an alternative. And that's the reason you changed. So then how do you say then that we should legalize corruption? Why don't we try and give other people an alternative? Because hii ni kama ina contradict Kenya.
We are not giving people alternative. What is happening that these guys were deliberate about how they wanted to grow.
Why don't we be deliberate so that you don't take that position of saying that
me, I'm deliberate. I have platform. I have customer border, young people, giving them jobs. I have done the right pop city.
But
me, I know I'm deliberate and I have a responsibility, and I'm doing something about it. At the same time, Buddha, siwezangi hapo chini nikwambie sasa wewe utafanya nini. No, I tell you what I'm doing in my space. When it comes to story of corruption, for example, hapo ndani. The reason I was saying legalize corruption, because me inaonekana wala wase wako na responsibility to do something about it, wameshindwa. So kama wameshindwa, you legalize it. No, it's not giving up, it's being wise. Unaona, you be wise and do something about it. Since hawawezi fanya kitu, mimi in my own capacity.
Where have you seen legalized corruption working?
As long as iko kwa receipt, si new hapo, is you levy, sikuna sijui if you levy hapo, weka hapo corruption
10%. Anajua proxy. It's already legal.
You know, so you can't tell us that is
kickback in a commission.
What I'm trying to say when legalizing corruption is if zote is that kama tumeshindwa tuseme, but we are not going to delegate our responsibility to other people and always point fingers to other people, and we ourselves are not doing anything about it. I'm doing something when it comes to corruption.
Which is?
Huh?
What are you doing?
Which is you're pushing for it to be legalized?
Yes, to be legalized, but also I have a community of young people that every day I'm interacting with, every day I'm giving them alternative on how to do things. That's my responsibility and my specific thing that I'm doing. Huku juu, ase wa chini sasa leo wanaendelea, when somebody is arrested, I have to call a cop and say, ni aje, uko sure amefanya hiyo kitu? Kama amefanya hiyo kitu afungwe. Kama hajafanya, wacha ni kama ni sort. That's how I'm going to sort it out. But huku juu mimi siwezi pigia the president simu. So ndafanya nini?
Corruption ni issue. Hiyo ndio inaleta. Unacheki hao mayouth tunawatetea. Their biggest problem now is unemployment, if you ask them. Number 2 ni corruption. Those are their concerns. 3 is role modeling inakuja huko chini. If corruption is dealt with, unemployment is solved. Because if you look at wacha tuchukue ile basic ya NYS. Ukitembea Mathare si utembea. Wanakwambia nyewe tangu NYS iende jo tunaumia. What brought NYS down? Corruption. Bado kuna doya vijana ijailipo. Wale ambao wachange sijui pesa ngapi itaingia kwa sako fulani alafu doya itarudi mingi. Kunao pia wanasafa. So you see that NYS line had a lot of, it solved crime, mtaani ilipungua kidogo, alafu it solved unemployment pay solved. I'm looking at one aspect NYS. Now, the billions these guys are taking, if we were to be put in manufacturing, you see, we create a lot of industries, employment itaingia. So corruption must be fought. By any means necessary, because it is the solution to our youth.
We cannot run away from this corruption topic. It's when we're talking about national values. You are giving us what you think are values that are unique to Kenya, for example?
Yeah,
from your perspective.
From my perspective, I agree with religion. I agree with culture. And perhaps just to say that religion ideally leads to beliefs. That's exactly what it does. And so for my belief, I believe in dignity. I believe in morality, decency. And those are some of the things that I would consider as values for myself. But they are generally, they stem from religion, right? And again, with a country that is 80% Christian, 10% Muslim, theoretically, I think primarily that's where we draw our value system from. But you know, let me just chime in on what Juliani was saying. I think I like what I hear you say about your responsibility.
Twice, eh?
Okay, sawa. Tuendelee tu tuone kwenye tutafika. But I agree with what you're saying. I like what you're saying, rather. Your responsibility to society, you're very aware of it, correct? But when it comes to morality, you want to back out. But when it comes to corruption, you're in it to win it. Why is there... I'm sorry, I shouldn't...
as well.
Why that disconnect? Why do you think you have a responsibility in terms of corruption and social vices, but not morality?
I have a responsibility. And morality is something that every time when I throw mbele yetu, we start discussing that instead of discussing something that literally is killing us. When it comes to, when somebody ame dress naked kwa teli, it doesn't affect the hospitali Mbagathi wase kupata hospitali dawa, or it doesn't affect employment. When somebody's dressed up nani in Malindi, sisi tulichapa tu picha tukona kwa kila pahali, and then mnatuwekea that's the main thing to discuss. That's not the main thing to discuss. The main thing to discuss is this, because this inamaanisha no jobs, people are dying today. Mtoto ana Mbagathi anabeba mtoto amekufa kila pahali, anaenda sijui wapi, anaenda narudi. Hiyo ndio inatu affect. So morality, mi kwangu at this particular time, is not a priority. It will be a priority when everybody ameshiba. And then oh, by the way, unaona msichana uva nini short, eh? You know, that's, we can have that conversation after that.
But not now.
You want to respond?
I think these things go hand in hand. We can't eliminate one and focus on another. Let them go hand in hand. I appreciate what we are saying about corruption. I appreciate what we are saying about unemployment rates within young people. But let's not lie to ourselves. Caroline Mutuku did a video last night, at least I saw it last night, where she talks about artists not being role models for their parents because what are parents allowing their children to watch at the end of the day. But Juliani, I'm saying that as artists, we have a clear responsibility to society. But then also that brings us to the other question. Is society a reflection of media, or is media a reflection of society? Then if we try and understand that, then we'll understand where we are trying to get to or where we are coming from. Juliani.
That's a very interesting line. Is it society? And we have Kimani Mbugo will be speaking to us in just a bit, and we're going to find from the people directly if artists should be prosecuted for going against common decency. But before we get into that, the main concern here is who is driving the agenda, Juliani? Because you seem to be bringing out this issue so many times. Do you think what is being covered in the media is heading in the wrong direction? Because we talk about all these things almost at the same level. There's corruption, like you mentioned, agreed.
Who's willing to pay is the one.
We've always brought it out. But there's also the issue of morality as well.
The person driving the agenda is
somebody who's paying. The same people are going to grow up and do those same things.
The person who's paying is the one driving the agenda. It's right now, kwa hii gazeti, whoever is paying that what itakuwa headline.
That is not necessarily true in terms of people who pay are the ones who get the headlines.
The people who pay, it's Buddha, it's obvious.
Mimi niko hii side ingine so najua sio hivyo bila.
Huko side ingine ni Mkenya bana. Just because uko kwa teli kila siku.
Niko hii side ya news. Maureen also wants to come in and maji, but we have Kimani Mbogo who also wants to weigh in on this conversation. He's our traffic commander, always gives us traffic updates, but for now, he's in Machakos County and he wants to weigh in on this discussion. He's got some reactions. Kimani, go ahead.
All right, we're here and your panel in studio, very diverse. Good to see Maureen in studio and Juliani and the rest. Now I want to have a conversation with the people of Machakos over here about that. I have a few young cats here. There's a gentleman over here. Kuja, just step over here and tukuone vizuri, yeah? Okay, so what do you think? Nimekueleza nimekumbea like creativity versus morality. Do you think some of our Kenyan artists they're crossing the line? Do you think they should be policed in terms of the content they produce? Ama?
Yeah, it's true. Some. Okay. Yeah, it's true. Some of the artists of Kenya are passing the cross line. They are passing the line because like the official Lambalolo, that it produces bad videos that which affects may affect the children, and even it's so very bad. You can't watch in our family. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that.
So you think like you're giving an example of Lambalolo. You're saying Lambalolo. You're how old are you?
17.
17. Yeah. And you do not like Lambalolo.
I like it, but unacheki sasa hizo mavida sio zuri kwa nini. So uwezi watch hiyo vida kwa place yenye kuna wazazi. Yeah, like that.
So ukiwa home mzazi wako hawezi kuallow kuwatch hiyo
because hiyo inani affect cause naanza kufikiria nini out of sense, yani hizo vitu mbaya.
Okay, so unaona dhani they should sasa what should the government do? Wanafaa kuambiwa waache, like if they cross the line they should be prosecuted?
Yeah, sasa wakicross line government sasa inafaa kuchukua nini? Inafaa kuchukua policy wastopiwe yani. Yeah.
All right. A young cat there giving their opinion. Let me talk to another gentleman over here. Zotuambie, what do you think? Creativity versus morality. Where is the line? Where should they draw the line? And when we draw the line on the other side, should there be prosecution?
Okay, yes, for me, I just think there should be that line. Okay, when you see some of them are just being creative, but on the other side, they are immoral. Because you can find like the young generation, there are those people, even you can find children at the age of 8, 9, 10, they are watching those songs, and you can find like some don't have people to control them. So I would
kama wewe nikuuliza kama umeona hiyo, let me give you a random example for nimeuliza Lambalolo. Unadhani hiyo ilikuwa, what's your opinion about that? Unaona ilikuwaje?
Hiyo ngoma kuna vile haiko poa to the society. And you see when in the society we are mixed up. Kuna wale watoto wadogo, the ones who are growing. So unaona like there is a time niliona kama mtoto kadogo kamechukua simu ya babake and is accessing the YouTube. And maybe the father hayuko aware can access nini. So unapata kata access to such of those songs which zenye zitakaribu morally. So I would wish that the government would ban some of those songs zenye they are not moral in our society.
Okay. Yeah. So you're for the ban. Yeah. Okay, let me talk to the lady over here. Just tell her to come. Let me just to get a diverse opinion. Yes, come over. Kuja. She's been here. She's been wanting to comment about this. Okay, tell us, what are your thoughts? Unafikiriaje? Government inafaa kuwa prosecute sahi kama sahi on social media watu wanaongelea vile Akodhe alienda mahali akachapa show, wanasema alikaa vibaya, lakini Akodhe anasema msinisumbue, I'm not a standard to be aspired to. Watoto wenu msiwaambie waniangalie, mimi niko tu kivyangu.
I think from my point of view si vizuri vile alifanya. Juu kwa society kuna zile morals zetu kama Africans. So for me, I think it was not nice. Yeah.
So who do you think should set that standard? Ni nani anafaa kuset hizo standards? Ni serikali ama ni sisi kama society? You say okay, sasa hapa you're going wrong, and then sasa tukiona sasa kama ume cross line, what should we do? Tunafaa kufanya nini?
Kama sisi society tumeshindwa, I think the government basi inafaa kuingililia.
So you're for prosecution. Waki cross line, they be prosecuted.
Yeah.
Hapo kwa studio kuna Juliani na Maureen wa Elani na Juliani. What do you think about their music? Elani na Juliani. Do you think they have set a good example?
Yeah, music yao kila mtu anaweza, mkiwa kwa nyumba kama ina play kila mtu anaweza watch, but hii Akodhe watoto wakikua hapana.
Okay, asante sana. Okay, well here guys, some of the diverse views from here in Machakos town. I don't know if I should handle it back to you or you want to hear more from them. There are so many of them here. Everyone wants to give a piece of their mind.
All right, Kimani Mbugwa there speaking to us live from Machakos with these panelists there. They're also speaking about the issue of morality, and it's a diverse views, but also we were talking about the issue of whether artists should be prosecuted for going against common decency. You can text in 22422, you can call in 0719 777. Juliani, you're finishing your thoughts on this issue of kulipa watu, and we want to clearly state that you don't pay to get on the headlines.
You pay.
I can assure you. That's what I'm telling you. I'm on the side of the media. So if anything, what happens? Did you pay us to come here?
Sinyi ndo mlipigia simu.
Bas, lakini ulitulipa. Ulitulipa.
Nyinyi mmenilipa.
Hatujakulipa. That's exactly what we're saying.
Let me make my point. I was just trying to be, I'm trying to be.
Nobody pays to get on the news.
Nataka kuongea na nyinyi because nyinyi maboy, but the truth of the matter, Buddha, is that whoever these guys make money na ads. If Safaricom, okay, the addition. So if somebody calls and says this is an issue for me, they will of course retract that information. Ama will consider it at least to retract or not. Can you mean nataka kusema ni aje? Like even a hashtag right now, if you go on Twitter, the trends kutoka asubuhi mpaka saa hii whatever. The trends that are being, of course, that are top at this particular time are paid tweets, because in the morning everybody is focusing on whatever.
But you also acknowledge that media houses have two sides, right? Advertising and editorial.
Yes.
Editorial is what determines what comes on the front page. Advertising is
the commercial interest.
At least najua leo, but Kenya nataka kusema ni aje, at the end of the day, Buddha, at the end of the day, and let's not pretend kwa society yetu. The problem that I have with everybody right now is that we keep pretending. Somebody right now, the reason why somebody atasamoniwa EACC and mtu mwingine atabebwa juu mtaani is because based on how much they're worth or how much they look like.
Since I'm also part of this head kidogo, nitawatetea lakini kidogo, in that media sometimes pia we are caught up in stories that open your eyes, like the man bites the dog, like the guy who mwenye alikula mapua yena. Maybe that guides us more than the aspect of corruption. So it's more of which story, if I put here, people really want to read. But at the same time, to back him up kidogo, I think we also have a responsibility in future, if we can start now to try and shape the society. Like what I'm seeing here can be a headline. If it was a headline, I know it would really help our society, including the story of Ule Benson, mwenye alikuwa KNH, akatorosha mtoi based on poverty. Now
it was a headline.
Yeah, it was a headline. Now, you see, like this one, I would put it as a headline if I have the interest of the society. NHIF rescues schoolgirl with arm tumor. You see, if this is punched in, then you're told NHIF ni sotano. Ule jamaa angekuwa na bili ya 50 kitu. Angekuwa na NHIF kada angetoa tu hivi na vitu zina happen. Saa hizi NHIF inafanya vitu mob. So that would work in that awareness ya society kaji, hata mimi nilikuwa kamina, you know, kuna consumer wa gazeti na kuna consumer ule wa rural mwenye ana idea mpaka ma big fish waseme. So maybe in the future or starting today we can move your temptation ya the man bites the dog. Ndio the big ndio the sasa kaikiwe kwa headline NHIF rescue schoolgirl with arm tumor, I'm sure kesho yake wengi wataline pale, hebu nipe hiyo card pia mimi.
So we create
kuna bubuda yangu msik amekanga na hii mguu, wacha nimlipieni one kama
kama NHIF.
We've attended so many harambe za mtani, unapata watu wangekuwa na NHIF. Hizo bill ni Motesona. Hosi nakwambia mna kada, hatuna kada.
Moteso is 100.
Mwambie Moteso ni nini?
Moteso ni
100,000 and above.
Ngirimia.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
We want to take a look at some SMSs, social media feedback, and then get final comments from our panelists as we wrap up this discussion.
Absolutely. 22422. We have the first one. Ahmed says, good morning, Daybreak team, panel. Artists don't produce on their own. Their editors, managers should be held responsible as well.
Okay, we should have some editors, managers here next time. Alvin Musamali. Yes, imagine you're watching TV with your kids and somebody pops up on screen 90% naked in the name of performing. This is total moral decay.
All right, we have some tweets as well coming up. The hashtag is Daybreak, always, every day, all day, from Monday to Friday. Jerusalem says, creativity must have a moral compass. I support Ezekiel Mutua. Be creative, but most of all, be moral.
Okay. It's a faithful viewer of this program. Elvis Nyaruri, okay. You can't do today's job with yesterday's methods and be in business tomorrow. You must give new methods and ways of doing things to keep abreast with the world's ever-changing trends. Hang the gloves and give upcoming talents a chance. You did it. We celebrated you. I don't know who they're referring to.
It's probably, you see, most of their fans are also tweeting it. So and Goomba Steve says, yes, let's model up our upcoming artists in a better way. All right. Okay, last tweet here. This one is from W. David 254. Creativity versus morality. Tell me about the naked boy statue outside the court. Is that creativity or promotion or immorality? I don't think we can prosecute the creative society. All right, let's take final comments here really fast.
You start with ladies first.
Yes, we'll start from this side. And we can wind up with this, talking about also the content that Akina Juliani and all the artists bring out there. Sometimes the lyrics are a bit intense. I wouldn't mention some of them here because...
They're videos that don't play on TV, but their views on YouTube, astronomical.
It is exactly, it's not just even here, even in Tanzania as well. There are some that have been banned by the president there.
Media, at the end of the day, again, I'm on your side. So, media, at the end of the day, propagates public discourse. Whatever is in the newspaper, whatever is on different social media platforms, media propagates public discourse. So whatever we are propelling, whatever is being propelled, is what the nation will adopt, is what the nation will have conversations about. We cannot run away from the fact that artists in this country have a moral responsibility towards the nation. You have a generation that is looking up to you. If you don't conduct yourself in a manner worthy of emulation, then what are we doing at the end of the day? I'm sorry, I keep looking at you.
No,
because we already established how Elani runs. But if you don't carry those conversations forward, then there's no way for them to be adopted. Unfortunately, we live in a highly globalized society where we borrow our ideals from the West, forgetting our culture. Let us go back again to what we are saying. Let us go back to our roots. Let us go back to our culture and determine for ourselves what is dignity, what is morality, and what is necessary for us to carry forward.
That's a good place to leave it. Juliani?
Right now,
and please don't ask questions.
If sisi wote hapa hivi sahi tutoe simu yetu and we look at our history of what we browsed, we look at the right now nini kiko WhatsApp, we look at every SMS that we have, what would we find?
What would you find on yours?
Ndakushow Buddha.
No, not right now. No,
just make the point.
I'll show you. I'm just trying to tell you that we cannot delegate responsibilities zetu kwa watu wengine. And that's the problem right now, because we're always delegating our responsibilities to other people. We always want to blame other people for our problems. Right now, the country is dying. And what do? We delegate it to Boniface Mwangi, we delegate it to Juliani to sing it in his song, we delegate it to you. Instead of sisi kwenda nje kusema, hii NHIF, if I don't get this card, I will die. Right now, sasa hivi venye nchi yetu iko, like, you have to, lazima uibe mtoto wako kwa hospitali ndio uonekane kwa news. What about the other 100 and 1,000 plus who can't even afford healthcare in their houses, in wala alifungiwa? Why do we have to be desperate, show desperation? So basically what we're trying to do, I'm trying to say right now when it comes to issues, corruption, morality and everything else, that we cannot delegate our responsibility. The only thing that we're supposed to do is that find common values or common interests as individuals and institutions, as people, and then work together to try to build a society that will be proud of in the future. So right now when I'm doing my thing as Juliani, as individual as Juliani, hata nimeongea before we came here, I spoke to Nani Majimaji. I have a project when it comes to waste management and youth employment. Ni hook up na say Mbakasi, I'll get them that opportunity. If we can start having those kind of discussions, then we tutenda mahali. So let's not delegate our responsibility.
Thank you.
And legalize corruption.
No. Maureen, the reference to the statue of a naked boy outside the court. And a question about morality and what's allowed and what's not allowed. What would you say is as your final thoughts?
I think, like I'd mentioned before, this is such a subjective issue. There are people who take absolutely no issue with that statue. There are people who can't bring themselves back into the CBD because of that. You know, there are very many arguments, and everyone is on different sides of the divide. I think the thing that I'd want to drum home about that, about corruption, about morality, is
they're all related.
they are all related. But the fact is, people forget the power that they have as individuals, and people forget the fact that it's actually. I wish I knew what verse it was in the Bible, but to he who much is given, much is expected, right? And this goes back to exactly what Daisy was saying. The fact that I am a musician, the fact that I am put up in a public place, means there is a high school girl, a primary school girl somewhere, looking at what I am doing, hoping to emulate what I am doing, so then have to watch what I'm doing. And that's what spoke to how we as a brand came out, because we understood that as soon as we came out, and you have songs like Kuku, and kids are singing the song, that changes how you think. You're like, okay, these are children, so we need to, like, you know, we need to figure it out. But that happens. That's the same case everywhere. To he whom much is given, parents need to teach, media needs to play their role, promoters, managers need to play their roles, PR people need to play their roles. We each have our individual roles and goals, and I'm so glad that Juliani stressed the point that he is playing his role with what he has, where he is, to make sure that the people around, the immediate people around him are doing better. I suggest that everybody does that. If you feel like and we hear this all the time, if you see something, say something. That happens across the board. If you see your child doing something that they should not be doing, instead of coming to Elani and telling Elani, you taught my child how, I did not. You did, I didn't. And so we really need to each play our role. It's very, and when we start to do that, and I hope that sounds sort of like a nirvana and a wonderful situation where everybody, it's very utopian and everybody is just living and loving. I wish that we could find that. But I think that we need to, like Juliani has said, take individual responsibility for our actions, for our thoughts, for the fact that where you are, you are affecting the people around you directly, and people you may never even know you are affecting. So it's just a matter of, I mean, back up and do better. let's just do better.
Step up your game.
Yeah, step up.
Yes. I'll take a walk and see that statue. After that,
statue of the naked truth.
After that, I'll also take a walk at Parliament. I hear there are some funny pictures in Parliament. I'll look at it, some funny pictures on it, so I'll also take a walk. But I'd like to say this. First of all, thank you for the opportunity, Citizen, for us to talk to the nation at about this time on critical issues, morality and corruption. On corruption...
And we hope you'll come back again.
Of course, anytime. On corruption, as much as it looks like PR, there's something happening or not, I'm happy about it. So ningesema ku big up Uhuru Kenyatta, big up Raila, the new energy looks good and it's good for the nation. Big up Ruto, ingia tu mboka, tukue na sauti moja. In short, just get into the system and let's have one voice. Aingie box. Aingie box tukue na sauti moja so that the nation speaks one voice against corruption and against all the ills, so that Kenya needs, I tell my guys when I meet them, Kenya needs 20 years like this so we can capture what we've lost for the last 50 years, like you say. But for me, I've never said Kenya has lasted for 50 years. It has always been there. I've never given the white man Kenya until today. So, corruption, tupigane nayo. It is, we are losing a lot on healthcare. You can imagine if someone goes with the money enough to provide medicine all across the country, 2 people. I look at it that way. If someone went with the money enough to build Outer Ring Road by 1 signature, I look at it that way. It must be fought with the same effort and zeal that it is wasting opportunities for our people. On the part of morality, I'll repeat it again. We will never cure morality with the law. So our friend is just to take a chill pill and work with the systems that are there, entrench the systems that are there, work with the leaders in place, culture, equity. To the youth, trace your roots. It will give you an identity that Juliani was saying. Your identity is critical to your movement now. Me, I traced mine. I know my great-grandparents. I even know now my great-grandmother, where she comes from in Seme. My great-grandfather in Seme. I've traced what they used to do. It guides me now understand why I behave in a particular, and how I can even shape myself better. So big up Seme for giving birth to me. Big up Nairobi for embracing me.
We're now doing shout-outs.
To
wrap up the program. It's not radio. Any feedback before we...
We have a lot coming through. There's a person on Twitter calls themselves Green Shop. Says the media also has a big role to play because they are the ones who choose which content to air. Hence, they play a huge role in choosing which culture to spread. Don't blame creatives.